In the days since Donald Trump's inauguration, the partisan pendulum has been swinging, but where it's going to land is anyone's guess. Democrats went all out in Kansas and Georgia's special elections in traditionally strong Republican districts where the results were close but not close enough. In this week's Georgia contest, Democrat Jon Ossoff fell 2 points shy of avoiding what will be a difficult June runoff against Republican Karen Handel. And in this one, both sides are calling it a win.
But let me tell you this. There is no doubt that this is already a victory for the ages.
I think this was a big loss for them. The bottom line is they went all in on it. They said that their goal was to get over 50%. They came up short.
And today there was another possible shift in the national political equilibrium with Utah Congressman Jason Chaffetz's announcement that he will not seek re-election. The current chair of the powerful House Oversight Committee said he's not running for any office for now and hopes his announcement will give enough time for other viable candidates to step forward. So, as Democrats pounce on the opportunities but so far fail to walk away with a win, is the tide really turning, or is this all a left-wing pipe dream? Joining me are Kirsten Hughes, chair of the Massachusetts Republican Party and the City Council president in Quincy, James Pindell, Boston Globe political reporter, and Steve Kerrigan, former CEO of the Democratic National Convention and a former candidate for lieutenant governor. Thank you all for being here.
Thanks for having us.
So I don't get the occasion often to say that I agree with Sean Spicer, but I kind of get where he's coming from. I understand the Democratic enthusiasm around Kansas. It was a very, very tough district for them. They ran close. They made the Republican sweep. But in Georgia, Jon Ossoff raised a massive amount of money, like 4 times the closest challenger, ran against a zillion different Republicans in a district that Donald Trump barely won, and he still couldn't get over 50%. So how is this a good thing for Democrats?
But in a district where the last congressman there, and it's been a Republican district since Gingrich got it 37 years ago, Tom Price just in November won by 24% more than his opponent. So it's not about Donald Trump necessarily. This was about whether Republican voters were going to turn out to send a Republican to Congress. 48% showed up to send Jon Ossoff. Now, look, it is going to be a tough race in June, and he may not be able to eke it out, but all of the energy and enthusiasm will be focused there. Will be focused in Montana and other spots where the fact that the Republican Party is spending any time and energy trying to win these safe Republican seats is a bad sign for them in under 100 days for this new president.
James, before I go to you for the neutral, nonpartisan take, I got to get Kirsten to weigh in. I'm guessing you don't see it the same way Steve does.
Yeah, no, look, this was totally, the Democrats went all in for Ossoff on this, and it's always about Trump with the Democrats these days, right? Everything is a referendum on Trump. They are so hysterical about every word the president utters or tweets, as it were. And so this was all about Trump, and they came up with a big loss.
Well, I would say it's mostly because most of his words are hysterical. That's why we get hysterical.
Look, I just think that there's no way to avoid them feeling like this is a big letdown, a big deflate in their, in their bubble. And when are they going to wake up? They are misreading the tone of the American people again.
Pindell?
I think you saw in that opening clip that both sides can obviously claim victory for their own particular needs, but I think there's something more interesting going on. For both parties right now, there are deep questions of which direction they're going to go. Usually it's just the party out of power, but no, the Republicans also. And so you saw in Ossoff a decision not to go with a Bernie-crat, which you did have in Kansas. But the Republicans, and you're seeing this nationwide, are taking one step off from Donald Trump. Not a full embrace. You saw that with Karen Handel, who won last night. Those who were hardcore all in for Donald Trump did not exactly do particularly well. And then you saw also some comments in town hall meetings in Oklahoma from a U.S. Senator and Iowa from a U.S. Senator, pretty critical against Donald Trump.
Let me just
one step off. Yeah.
Jump in for a second, because we have video of Joni Ernst making one of the comments that you were just describing, in which she criticizes part of the president's MO. Let's take a look.
I think that we have a president that has a number of flaws. I do wish that he would spend more time in Washington, D.C.
So, Kirsten, there it's not a hysterical Democrat criticizing the president, but a senator from the Republican Party. What's your take on what she had to say?
Well, look, I think local politicians have to play to their base and to people in their district. And so when they need to distance themselves from some of the things the president needs to say or has said. But it sounds very similar to what Democrats have been doing about Elizabeth Warren and them trying to distance themselves from Elizabeth Warren. A lot of, senators and really trying to distance themselves from that brand of
say one thing,
ideology.
Joni Ernst in Iowa, a swing state, correct. But James Langford in Oklahoma saying that Donald Trump needs to release his taxes because he made a promise is something else.
Yeah.
I actually had interrupted you before going to that video of Joni Ernst. Had you gotten to finish your deep, complex thought about each party reckoning with its direction for the future? You talked about Republicans trying to maintain a little bit of distance from Donald Trump, and then Democrats.
Well, look, I think what the dynamic is that all politics isn't really local. All politics is all Trump. So we begin this conversation. And while Democrats know they're unified against Trump, they haven't sorted out this Bernie versus more establishment sort of voice. And on the Republican side, they're also sort of dealing with these sort of questions on how close to be. And as long as you look at approval ratings around 42%, which are gone up, but as long as around 42%, I think we're going to have a pretty clear answer where they need to go for 2018.
Steve Kerrigan, if National Democrats tasked you with leveraging whatever anti-Trump animus is out there on the part of Democrats, independents, maybe a few Republicans, and maximizing that in the 2018 congressional races, how would you go about trying to leverage this nationwide?
Well, I mean, first, any party should always start in their precincts and in their communities and cities and towns, and Kirsten knows this. And we've got to, as a party, we had a 50-state strategy under Chairman Dean. He did a great job. We've got to get back to more organizing on precinct level. But we've also got to look at there are 94 House districts in 2016 that we have a better shot at winning than we had in Georgia yesterday.
2018?
In 2018.
Okay.
I'd focus like a laser beam on those. Charlie Cook says it's, I think, 71 of those districts. But I'd focus on those, make sure that we're recruiting good candidates, getting the resources there, but also building up a strong party apparatus in communities and in states that can help support and buoy that.
Does it work to raise a ton of money from out of state, like John Ossoff did, and also to lean, as Democrats want to do, on early voting? And, you know, we've seen again and again, going back to the presidential election, Democrats get all excited about the early voting returns, and then they just dissipate, and Republicans make it up on Election Day. Or do they need to do something different? I'll start with you, Jim.
That was a nice turn to her.
I know. I was like, wow. You know.
Well, look,
She can craft a perfect shot here as you give a detached,
Well, no, I mean, look, the reality is that I think there are some people who are having frustrations today that on tax day, on Saturday, it wasn't tax day, but there are over 100 different protests around the country telling Donald Trump to release his taxes, which he obviously did not do.
Right.
What they were not doing is they were not phone banking into Georgia. Right. They were not working in Montana. And Democrats still haven't spent any money. But to your point, which is true, you know, the average president in their first midterm loses 23 seats. This is an historically low presidency. So if Democrats need to win 24 seats. Right. So you can see how they take the House. The Senate's a totally different ballgame here. But there is a lot of enthusiasm on the Democratic side. The question is whether or not they're channeling it in the proper way.
Kirsten, let's get local here for a second. If, in fact, any sort of Democratic wave does develop heading into 2018, that's going to make life a little bit more difficult for Charlie Baker than it should be for for a Republican incumbent with his approval ratings. That could be a problem for him, right?
Well, 2018 is going to be about records, and it's going to be about Charlie's record of success here in Massachusetts. So I think he's going to be able to use that as an illustration of why people should send him back to the corner office. But look, it's always tough for a Republican in Massachusetts, no doubt about it. But good luck to any Democrat who wants to take on Charlie Baker.
By the way, is he going to get a challenge from the right? Do you think that's going to happen?
I think folks in the Republican Party here in Massachusetts are united behind Governor Baker, as most of the people in the state seem to be, according to polls.
So no return of Mark Fisher? We're not going to see that?
I don't know. We'll see.
All right. I have to ask all three of you to weigh in on something a little bit different. Tom Brady, who has been repeatedly linked to President Trump, as the entire Patriots organization has been, was all set to go along for today's White House ceremony visit. And then at the last minute, he bailed out, citing family obligations. Maybe something having to do with his parents. It's not entirely clear. Any surprise that he took this tack?
I don't think so. He's not a big risk taker, and I think right now there's not a great upside to going to the White House for him. He's got a great, polished image of himself, so why risk it? And frankly, I take him at his word that he had a family issue, but he probably could have made it work, but there's really no upside for him.
James Spindle?
We were discussing before this segment that wonder if the family issue is Giselle.
Yeah.
Whether he could still have a family if he decided to go.
It went down.
All right, and Kirsten, were you bummed out that he wasn't there?
Well, because I didn't get to look at him in the pictures, yes. So I was just sad about that. But look, yeah, I think he answers to Giselle. She told him not to go. He's not going to go.
You can always Google. Remember that ad he did where he was holding the baby goat?
Oh,
yeah, you can go look for that.
Awkward, right? I agree with Steve on this one, though. I take him at his word.
Yeah.
I think he probably does have family obligations.
That's a lovely note to end on. Kirsten Hughes, James Spindle, Steve Kerrigan, thank you all.
Thanks, Adam.